Oh, by the way, I want to give you extra information. So when the product binds to the active site of the enzyme in here, we call this a competitive inhibition. It is competitive because the product is competing with the substrate for the same active site. That's why I call it competitive inhibition, because both the product and the substrate, they occupy the same active site. Now we have a different types of inhibition. So the product can bind to other site that is not active site. After the product binds to enzyme to another site that is not active site, it will change the conformation of the enzyme. When the conformation of the enzyme is changed, what will happen to the active site? The active site will also change. When the active site is changed, then the substrate can no longer fit into the active site. In this case, the enzyme is also being inhibited. So what do we call this inhibition? We call this allosteric inhibition. So the differences between allosteric and competitive inhibition is that competitive inhibition, both the product and substrate, they bind to the same active site. In here, allosteric inhibition is different. The product binds to a different site on the enzyme. Once the product binds to this different site on the enzyme undergo conformational changes. That means the structure is changed, and when the protein structure is changed, the active site is also changed. When the active site is changed, the substrate can no longer bind to the active site of the enzyme. Then it will shut down this catalytic process. It will shut down the enzymatic reaction. So we call it allosteric inhibition. Your textbook gave you the example cyanide is actually an enzyme inhibitor. The reason why cyanide can kill people because it shuts down an essential enzyme in our body, so that we can no longer the reaction can also occur, but it takes a long time. It's more or less like shutting down a reaction. And because of that, then it can kill us. Penicillin block the active site of bacterial enzyme, and this enzyme actually is for protein synthesis. When the bacteria can no longer make protein, what will happen? The bacteria will die. So penicillin block the active site. That means it is competitive inhibition, so that the enzyme cannot speed up the making of the protein in the bacteria. So this is so what happens is that, okay, the reactant A, remember we have the pathway. This is like the close to reality reaction, the active pathway. So A is converted to B, B is converted to C, C is converted to D, and they all need enzyme. So enzyme 1 is required to convert A to B. and so on. And then product F can bind to this site. After product F bind to this site, what will happen? It will induce a conformational change so that the active site is also changed. When active site is changed, then the reactant cannot bind to the active site, and then it will inhibit the enzymatic reaction. What do we call this reaction? What do we name this type of inhibition? Yes, we call it allosteric inhibition here. We call this allosteric inhibition, and this is the example. This is an example of allosteric inhibition. So this is just a summary. Reactant A will be converted to B, C, D, and E, and product F binds to a different site. It is not the active site, it is a different site. Induce conformational change of the enzyme 1, and then the active site of the enzyme 1 is also changed. And then after the active site is changed, then the reactant A can no longer bind to it. And in this case, it will effectively shut down the enzymatic process. We have something called a cofactor in the enzyme. So in order for an enzyme to work, other than the ignition key like the phosphate group, to turn on the enzyme, some enzymes require something called a cofactor, like copper, zinc, or iron. All these can bind to the enzyme to help the speeding up of the reaction. And then there's something called a coenzyme, which is an organic non-protein cofactor. Usually coenzyme, they are from vitamin. I'll give you an example of the coenzyme. An example is called coenzyme A. The symbol, we call it CoA, coenzyme A. Coenzyme A is derived from vitamin B, and coenzyme A is derived from vitamin B. Well, we're going to learn about coenzyme A on next Wednesday's lecture. On next Wednesday's lecture, we will learn about coenzyme A. It is an important molecule in cellular respiration. We need to talk about oxidation and reduction reaction. Oxidation is the loss of electron. This is the definition. Reduction is the gain of electron. So it is the definition. The mnemonic for that is oil rig. Oxidation is the loss of electrons. So oil rig. It helps you to memorize it. What it called. We usually call the oxidation reduction reaction, we usually call them a redox reaction. Redox, this is oxidation. This one we call it reduction. So we call this a redox reaction. Yes, we set in here. They usually occur in a pair. It's like endogonic and exergonic reaction. They usually occur as a pair. The reason is that I already told you that the exergonic reaction, it releases heat, so that it is a hot reaction. This one, endogonic reaction, absorb heat or absorb energy, so that it is cold. Then when you put hot and cold reaction together, it fits into the first law of dynamics. So the heat energy release from the exergonic reaction can be given to the endogonic reaction, because endogonic reaction require energy to do that. Similarly, oxidation is losing electron, reduction is gaining electron. So one lose, one gain. So they form a perfect couple. They give you an example, magnesium and oxygen. when magnesium and oxygen react with each other, the end product will be magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide. So what happens is that oxygen will gain electron from magnesium. Magnesium will lose electron. So because one oxygen can gain electron from magnesium, and it is a redox reaction. And it is, remember our sodium chloride example in our, I'll say the first, is it our first online lecture? We talked about ionic bond. I told you that ionic bond is like a married couple. So because sodium, it has one extra electron want to give, but chloride needs one more electron. So the extra electron of the sodium is like an engagement ring that is given to chloride. The chloride gladly accept this engagement ring, and then they get married, and then it is the ionic bond. As a matter of fact, this is an example of redox reaction because sodium losing an electron is oxidized oil. Chlorine is gaining a reaction, it is a ring. So sodium is oxidation, chlorine is going through a reduction. Another definition of redox reaction is that oxidation is the loss of hydrogen atom. Reduction is the gain of hydrogen atom. So oxidation, remember oil ring. Oxidation is the loss of electron or hydrogen atom. Reduction is the gain of electron or hydrogen atom. So remember this. The reason we use the hydrogen atom because in photosynthesis it is easier for us to see it like this. So chloroplasts convert solar energy to ATP and use it to reduce carbon dioxide into carbohydrate. What it means is that carbon dioxide, as you can see, it is CO2. It has no hydrogen. But the end product, glucose, is C6H12O6. It gains 12 hydrogen atom. In other words, carbon dioxide gains hydrogen atom. That means it is undergoing a reduction. That's why it is said that carbon dioxide is being reduced into glucose. On the other hand, you can say that water is being oxidized to become oxygen because water loses hydrogen atom and then it becomes water. You can call it this way. For mitochondria or cellular respiration, it is very similar. It says that mitochondria oxidize carbohydrate to build ATP. So what happens is that carbohydrate is the glucose, and then it is being oxidized. That means removing or losing hydrogen atom. Hydrogen atom is being lost, and then it becomes carbon dioxide. And then oxygen, on the other hand, is being reduced because it gains hydrogen atom to form water. And as you can see that the equation for cellular respiration is exactly the opposite of the photosynthesis. That means the product of photosynthesis, namely glucose and oxygen, is the reactant of the cellular respiration. But the product of the cellular respiration, namely carbon dioxide and water, is actually the reactant of photosynthesis. And what energy is this one in photosynthesis? Yes, this is the solar energy here. And the energy here at the end of the cellular respiration, the energy here, it is the ATP. In other words, when we combine these two equations, on the Earth, we are basically converting solar energy into ATP. complete oxidation of glucose can release 686 calories of energy. But not all this energy, they are being used for making ATP. Some of the energy is used for ATP. What about the rest of the energy? Do you remember? What will be the rest of the energy? So the rest of the energy will be lost as heat because of the second law of thermodynamics. The conversion of energy is not 100% efficient. So the heat that is lost in the cellular respiration, what do we use it for? To maintain our body temperature at 37 degrees. And also, we also lost the heat energy to the surrounding as well. So here it says that cell will break down glucose step by step in order to get the energy to make ATP. Can you come up with a reason? Why do cells break down glucose step by step to make ATP instead of converting glucose directly into ATP? We talked about this a few slides ago. The main reason is that if we convert glucose directly into ATP, then we need a lot of energy to do it. And using a lot of energy in one step, it will overheat our body, it will burn our body. But if we break down glucose step by step, each step we only need a little bit of energy, invest a little bit of energy, then the heat that it releases will not overheat our body. So I like this picture and I don't like this picture. Let me tell you why I like this picture. I like this picture because it tells you that it is what I call the circle of life. So the sunlight is the solar energy captured by the chloroplast to do photosynthesis. So it takes carbon dioxide and water combined with the sunlight and then the solar energy. Then you will form carbohydrate and oxygen. So it is photosynthesis. The product of photosynthesis is actually the reactant of the mitochondria. So mitochondria take carbohydrate, namely glucose and oxygen, and then undergo cellular respiration to make. What is the major product of cellular respiration? What's the main product? The main product of cellular respiration is actually ATP. The byproduct is carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide and water, they are the byproduct of cellular respiration. The whole purpose of cellular respiration is to make ATP. Remember that the whole purpose of cellular respiration is to make ATP. And then, in the process of making ATP, of course, we generate heat. Some heat is lost, either to keep our body warm or to the heat loss to the surrounding. And then the plant take the product, the byproduct meaning that it's the product that we unintentionally generate. The carbon dioxide and water and also solar energy as the reactant to form to go through photosynthesis again. Of course, during photosynthesis, the plant also generate heat. So the reason I like this is because it tells you that we need to have a balance between the plant and the animal. And that's why what we are doing here, destroying the rainforest, is a very unwise behavior. Because if we destroy rainforest, then we decrease the photosynthesis. When we decrease the photosynthesis, but the cellular respiration is either remain the same or we are increasing the cellular respiration because our population is increasing and increasing, then we will cause the balance of the nature. We will tip the balance of the nature. The nature is no longer in balance. What will happen is that we will ultimately cause something called extinction. That means we do not have enough of photosynthesis to support the cellular respiration, then all the animals will die eventually. So destroying rainforest or killing plant is a very unwise behavior. That's why I like this picture. It tells us the importance of the ecology. And then I don't like this picture because it says that photosynthesis, we have plant here, cellular respiration, we have animal here. But I don't like this picture because cellular plants also do cellular respiration. They should put the plant picture also in here on this side as well. Yes, this is one of the biggest misunderstanding, I would say one of the major misunderstanding of all the bio-free students. They think that, okay, plants do photosynthesis in daytime, and they do cellular respiration in nighttime because there's no light there's no sunlight at night. That's why plant cannot do photosynthesis at night. Then the only thing they will do cellular respiration. The thing about cellular respiration is that as long as you are a living organism, as long as you are alive, then you will have cellular respiration. In other words, cellular respiration occur in plant. This part occur in plant 24/7. Remember at the beginning of in our very first lecture, we talked about 7 characteristics of living organism. One of them is the making of the energy by cellular respiration. All living organisms make ATP. All living organisms do cellular respiration. Plant is a living organism. So when they are alive, they do cellular respiration just like animal 24/7. So in other words, plant do cellular respiration and photosynthesis in daytime, but plant do only cellular respiration in nighttime. So remember this. Cellular respiration in human. So we are involved in both so-called photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Why? Because we human beings eat plants. We eat vegetables, we eat fruit, we eat vegetables. And we also eat animals. We eat animals that eat plants. For example, we eat steaks. Steaks is from cow. Cow eat grass, cow eat plants. So we eat both plant and animal. So we are involved in both photosynthesis and cellular respiration. But of course, the photosynthesis that we involve is indirectly. So it tells you this. These two combined basically tells you the same message that I told you. We need energy-rich molecule, meaning the glucose, in order to make ATP. Where do we get glucose? We get glucose from plant, from photosynthesis. If all the plant die, then we cannot make ATP. What happens when we cannot make ATP? What does it mean? When we can no longer make ATP, it means that we are dead. So this picture summarizes what happened. It also tells you the significance of cellular respiration. Have you ever wondered why we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide? We breathe in oxygen, so that oxygen is one of the reactants of cellular respiration. And another reaction is that, why do we need to eat? We need to eat because from the food we can get the glucose. So we have glucose from the food and we have oxygen from the atmosphere. That's why we breathe in oxygen, and that's why we need to eat food. And then we get the glucose from the food and oxygen from the air for the mitochondria to do cellular respiration. And then mitochondria make ATP. And then the byproduct, what is the major product of cellular respiration? The main purpose of cellular respiration is to make ATP. So ATP is the major product. The byproduct, the unintentionally product of cellular respiration is carbon dioxide and water. That's why we breathe out carbon dioxide. So that's the end of the online lecture. We will talk about cellular respiration in detail on Wednesday. Thank you.